saying in Qatar, it is possible that we could have some of the games played on some of the continents and others played elsewhere. It is very possible. But like you are saying, I think people are saying in Africa we don't have enough of the facilities.
They talk about the facilities.
Yes, and we don't, even those we have are not to the standard of those games. And even if we had the standards, they talk of the corruption like they are not corrupt. Talking of which, as we go away, I was in Africa, I think we still have a problem. That time I was telling, I came to understand that the trophy which was given to the South African Nobel Prize was stolen. And I'm like, now what is happening with Africa?
Maybe so, it's all
Nduguru Garama. We may not have enough time to finalize this issue of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, because it is very crucial to the development and one of the components that will have the empowerment of Africa as a continent to leap into the economic world. We may not finish it today. But I also want to pick your views on the implementation. Do you think we are moving in the right direction? Do you think there is something that needs to be done? Of course, maybe next time we'll be having the Secretary General, Bwana Wamakele, to join us to explain in detail on the progress, how far we have gone.
I want to rate the implementation process in as far as the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is concerned to be the fastest in the history of African Union. Why? That out of the 55 countries on the African continent, I hope they are 55. They are no longer 54.
Yeah, already 54 have signed, yes, except one country has refused.
It is still thinking. She's still thinking about it. You know, when you look at the fact that this was a 2018 March arrangement, which our heads of state gave us, which I have already called great wisdom, and that we are now talking about well over 54 countries. You can agree with me that that is extremely, very, very important, sure, for a continent.
It's a vote of...
We have got a situation whereby, of course, even where we have that it is a process. These are processes. The respective countries' national parliaments must also do some, like for instance, we admitted, you remember DRC, and lodging of the instruments, domesticating, it is a process. But the rate at which we have managed the processes in as far as the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is concerned is lovable. We also, because there are certain protocols, there are certain segmented areas, like for instance, this payment settlement system, which is about, it does so many things, but I think the majority, the best way, and of course we deal with, I think they have now looked at, they have co-opted Afrex Bank, which, and we are talking about digital currency.
Yes.
And the purpose certainly is to make sure that we don't lose a lot of money, which we have always lost as a continent, through doing business by way of converting currencies.
Yes.
Because when you look at, for instance, a Nigerian dealing with a Ugandan, and you are looking at, and they are both coming from their respective countries with their own currencies, the Naira, then you convert the Naira, then you have to do business in Uganda, probably you convert to a dollar, then it will get converted to the shilling. It is estimated, for instance, that we have lost through conversion in terms of doing business, we usually lose well over $5 $5 billion as a continent. That's a lot of money. There is no way you...
And we're simply not losing that money, like disappearing. We are giving that money to someone.
Absolutely. You see, in the process of conversion, money is lost. And when money is not simply lost and it ends there, it means, therefore, that you are increasing the cost of doing business, and at the same time, you are slowing down the process of doing business. Now, those two, by the introduction of this very payment settlement system, is going to be done away with. So I'm looking at, and it is being piloted in about 6 countries now on the African continent. I want to believe Ghana is one of them. South Africa could be one of them as well. So we are looking at also emphasis in core areas, because you see, Africa has got, although generally speaking, we can say that the entire continent, generally speaking, the entire, and Gaddafi showed us that even in the so-called Arab desert areas, you can turn it into an arable land, yes, and you do agriculture. So, generally speaking, Africa is arable, because well over 65% of her land, it can be cultivated and you grow anything you want to grow there. But the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is one of its components is that they want to emphasize where each of these countries has got a niche. Such that, for instance, if we know for a fact that Ghana does cocoa better than any other country, then we support her in that venture, then we can improve on the cocoa, and I think the leaders of Ghana have always told those people, the Europeans who manufacture our chocolate, that we can do this ourselves. So the intra-trade, the intra-African trade that the Africa Continental Free Trade Area espouses is something that we must not lose out this time around.
Sure.
Because we are talking about a projection that, and I think 1 billion has been mobilized to kickstart off this process. The projection is that in not far a future, about 8 trillion,
trillion,
yes,
now it's at $1 trillion.
Thank you so much. Must have been because you see, by its nature, by the nature of Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and by proposing that to do away with tariff barriers, including neglecting the levying of taxes on commodities entering different countries, by proposing that, for instance, we can do digital business, by making sure that these letters of origin, you know, like commodity verification, which usually take 14 days,
sure,
that we can do it digitally and it is instantaneous. We are doing away with a number of revenue collection centers and to different African countries, and you must make this attractive. Therefore, you must put in place, and I think that's the idea of putting those monies that we are talking about in place, so that you can counter the kind of losses the individual countries would have made in making sure that they implement the Africa Continental Free Trade Area.
Sure. But like I said, we'll come to this topic maybe next time when we have enough time, and also be involving the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area to give to us the status, how far we have gone. Like we said, all African 54 countries have already endorsed and they have signed the instruments which they have deposited, I think, with the African Union. The only country is the notorious countries. Eritrea, which has not signed, but I think they are signing or not signing could be so inconsequential when it comes to what the other African heads of state have committed. And you wonder why Eritrea of all countries, because when you look at the economy, they stand to benefit more by joining the rest, although the arguments that maybe they are considering what the national interests vis-a-vis the regional developments. But
we give them time, because even Tanzania had it delayed.
Yeah, they took their time.
They took their time.
One of the benefactors of the African Continental Free Trade Area will be apparently women, because when it comes to small businesses, I think women are key in that trade, because they are doing these cross-border businesses. And I had a clip I had discussed with the producer about what this means. I think it was the former president of Malawi, Joyce Banda, who was speaking at the conference in Tanzania, at the African Free Trade Area conference, which was recent in Tanzania. I think we can listen to her and hear what she's talking about women in trade in Africa.
Is he ready?
Well, I think they will give it to us. Okay.
Yeah.
About economic migration, about people moving from one country to another, and people coming to South Africa. And you've seen latest in the recent past, the fights, the xenophobia. What is your comment? And I said, yes, that is a big subject that I cannot discuss in 2 minutes. But my position is this, and I want to share that with this meeting because it's relevant to this event. I said that, yes, indeed, our sons and daughters are dying on the Mediterranean, going to Europe looking for opportunities. Our daughters are dying in the Middle East, going to work in households where they face untold abuse and misery. Our sons and daughters are going to other countries where they are being mistreated and are not welcome. There's a solution. The solution is this meeting. The solution is what we are doing here. I insisted that since I've been a leader myself, it's about political will. We must ensure in our countries that we create opportunities for our young women and our youth to make sure that there are things to do in their country. They don't need to travel and die and be abused. I want to congratulate the Secretary General on this meeting. But more importantly, I would like to say that I want to agree with my champion, my hero, my president, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, who said you cannot progress if you move alone and leave a whole sector of your society behind. Meaning, there's no way countries are going to prosper when women are not party to that progress. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say that I'll talk about what I think we as governments should do. But key for me is political will. You will find that a leader's decisions and actions will translate into opportunities for their people, the people they serve. I therefore wish to congratulate my sister, my president, Madam Samia, the president of this republic, for the impact she's having on all women and all leaders on the continent.
So she for the former president was talking about the women contribution to the trade in Africa and also activities in Africa, and was quoting Mzee Nyerere, the late, who said, you cannot move as a community when you have left a group of people, of your people behind, and according to her, she's talking about women. But I also like when she says that if, I mean, given now this Africa free trade area, the jobs that come with that, he's talking about how much money we throw away by when you convert from a naira into a rupee, into a shilling. By the time you come to do the final transaction, you have given away jobs, you have given away money, you have given away all that, which again, I mean, you are buying from a Nigerian to a Ugandan. Why would you again then buy in dollars, gentlemen and ladies? So the problem has been some of our economic policies on the continent because of this fragmentation. Sister Rachel, she's talking about, which is also passionate about our people being abused in other parts of the world, our people dying on the waters. One would say these are mainly women and children, but this time there are men who are also are suffering in that. Do you think women have a very cardinal role in this, or it is a general problem for all us Africans?
I think I'd like to come at it from a slightly different direction. Of course, women are important contributors to moving us forward on in economic terms. But I think I'd like to speak to this in general terms. When Africa started its journey, March of Africa, about 60 years ago, at the turn of the political empowerment, and of course the formation of the African Organization of African Unity, at that time, many of the founding fathers of the African superstate, if you will, were very much bent on political federation. But during the 60-year journey, many of the people at the helm of the African enterprise realized that economic emancipation is maybe more critically important to secure in the mid and long term. So this African Continental Free Trade Area is a very bold step in the direction of doing what we should have done at the outset. Ndugu Mwalimu, the late Nyerere of Tanzania, was very much bent on making sure that the political state, superstate, took shape. But somewhere along the way, the people who were working along with him, and of course there was Milton Obote at that time, they did not want to move as a political federation. It is said that Dr. Obote was very weary of Uganda disappearing in this enterprise.
Actually, Kenyatta was even worse.
Okay. So Ndugu's enterprise fell by the wayside.
Yeah.
But I think what I'm trying to say, and this is setting us up for the next time we meet, is to say that this economic federation is something that was not understood in terms of how critically important it is. Because if you see the things that we've been addressing here at different times, if we are talking about customs union, you're talking about monetary union, you're talking about the common market, those are things that precede the benefits that we look forward to. And in fact, political federation is something that is now on the back burner in the interest of economic prosperity. Because we realize that even if you have a political federation that cannot be financed by ourselves, we will return to the same place that we were years ago. And of course, I'm answering the question in a roundabout way. Women who are not empowered to contribute to this enterprise mean that this equation cannot balance in the end. So people who now realize that women must be co-opted in the initial stages. Ndugu Rugarama was talking about this thing is taking shape faster than many of the enterprises that have been proposed along the way. We all know that the meeting of African heads of state and government that gave rise to this present effort in 2012 is not a very long time ago. And the fact that 8 years ago, when this thing actually came to life, 4 years ago, when this thing came to life, is not a very big difference. There's not a very big difference between 10 and 4 years.
Yeah, sure.
But there is a realization that we are behind the curve. There is a realization that there is no foreigner who will deliver the African dream. There is an understanding that political emancipation will not deliver the results by itself. So I think there is a willingness now to work faster and to work harder to deliver what we should have done that many years ago. And the fact that these regional blocks are also being co-opted is an understanding that someone sitting in Ethiopia cannot necessarily move things that fast in South Africa. So you need these regional blocks. You need SADC and you need whatever the other formations they are to make sure that these synergies are actually cultivated to make this thing work faster. Because what was happening in the past, we had big statesmen such as Kwame Nkrumah and the Nyereres of this world, but individuals cannot move this project. It is these blocks combining their energies that will get us to where we need to go. So women also being included is very much part of the understanding of where we are at this time. The fact that ECOWAS has done so much, but it cannot affect things in South Africa. East African Community has done so much, but it cannot affect things in the Maghreb Union. So I think for me, it is a realization that the lessons that we've learned in this 60-year journey must be harnessed to enable us to get to where we need to go in the short, medium, and long term. So finally, Africa is taking lessons from the mistakes we've made along the way, of relying, for example, on the West to deliver for Africa. They have no interest in that. We are realizing that unless we use the brain power he talked about, that the formidable brain power that is being assembled to move Africa to the next level, brain power that is domestic, we will not be able to go where we are. So we need to be. So this is where Africa should have been, but better late than never.
Sure.
Maybe to volunteer information, just a little bit, Ndugu Mtuta here, is that Africa is projected in the next 10 years to have the youngest population. Now this population, which is young, certainly the Africa Continental Free Trade Area factored that into their matrix. And that is why they have got a special program for the youth. Youth are a very important component in this, or the young, for instance, population that we are talking about and we are growing into, are factored into the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, such that they are looked at as a point of reference in terms of pushing this economy, the African economy, the industrialization we are talking about, and the science and innovation we are talking about, the mechanization and the improvement of agriculture we are talking about, to buttress the point that has been raised by Africa Development Bank, the former boss, that we can leverage on our potential in agriculture, and we know how potentially great we are, so that we are no longer talking about potential, we are talking about actual. So yes, youth, like women, have been factored into the Africa Continental Free Trade Area for purposes of powering the economy of Africa to greater heights.
Yeah, like you said, that Africa is arable. You can grow whatever you can grow, even
virtually
in Morocco.
Everything.
Yes, in Sudan, wherever Africa is, you can grow something, because we have had even vast areas in this world, but they're still able to and I think Gaddafi proved that even in a desert, still there is something that can be grown there, because Africa is fertile.
Sure.
Viewer, we thank you for the time you have been with us. Of course, we had that small interaction for footballers, but that's part of the system, and I think everyone now becomes happy and hopeful that we'll be watching football, because I've been asking for the last, I think, 2 years also, when UBC has not been screening the games, especially when it came to COVID and people were so stressed without some of these games. We'll be continuing next week with this discussion of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, because today we could not exhaust because of that time.
That's true.
We'll be finalizing it, talking more about it next time. The benefits, how does Africa benefit from this trading bloc within Africa itself. Until then, we wish you the best of the weekend, and take care. We know Ebola is around, but it's not as bad as it is being projected by some people, but take extra caution, be safe. See you live, see you next week. Thank you.
Well.